Google versus the U.S. Ever hear of that? Google is so sophisticated that other people want to get into the action. So what they're doing is suing Google. They're suing Google, or the U.S. is suing Google. Remember the Standard Oil Trust? Standard Oil Trust had a refinery, and that it dominated the landscape. The railroad companies had their own railroad. They laid the ones that laid the track, and they set the prices and how freight is moved. And they also said, only on our railroad tracks can our trains go. They got sued. They got broken up. Now your railroad track will have other companies who have railroad engines traveling on your track. Yes. And your oil refineries. Well, you happen to have Standard Oil gasoline stations, but then other companies got in there, Shell, BP, what have you. They drilled for oil, they set up their refineries, and now they have gasoline. So you have multi places. There was a guy called Bechtel, way back in the 1980s, maybe, when the price of gasoline went from about 25 cents to 35 cents a gallon, and people stood in lines. The Arab War. It was really an Arab war that they stopped producing. Well, the guy bought his own refinery, and he offered gasoline at 25 cents lower than the big companies did. And he sold it to a lot of independent gas stations. Yes. And so what happened when the big oil companies did? They bought him out. He made a very good profit in selling the oil refinery. And they shut it down and still had their own thing. Back in the last century, Eastman Kodak basically dominated the film processing business. In every town you could find a Eastman Kodak processing unit. So one little company that wanted to get into the action sued Eastman Kodak. And mind you, Eastman Kodak had to pay them money so they could set up their own business processing film. Fuji had their own business too. They were the second-rated film in the United States. And then you had a lot of little companies that were selling film too. But when Eastman Kodak got sued, all these little companies joined into the lawsuit against Eastman Kodak and made money off of Eastman Kodak. So now I could take my 35 millimeter cartridge and bring it to that other company up there, up the street. Now what has happened is Eastman Kodak doesn't do that anymore. They do it for motion pictures and maybe some little operations in Hollywood. But now you bring it to a Walgreens, and Walgreens has the unit where they can run the film, or you do it to a Walmart where they have the units, small units, and they can run your film through there and develop your film. I knew a small photography operation, and they would run. I had my Tom Best worked there, so I would give my role to Tom Best, and Tom Best would develop in-house and make prints of that stuff and contact sheets. That's what happened to LaSalle Photo, is they had these operations and people would drop their rolls off to LaSalle, and LaSalle would develop them, make a contact sheet, and the people would go in there and circle what pictures they want, and they would blow the stuff up. When I was at Columbia College, that's what the other students do. I didn't know that about LaSalle. I did after a while. But Tom Best was developing my stuff, so I paid him. I'd rather pay an individual who knew what they were doing. Well, he was doing the same thing. He was doing it. No, there was nothing else. But I couldn't. I could do it too at home, but I couldn't get the temperature right on this. And the temperature is very important with color film. Yes. But here's the thing. Google is being sued because they're dominating the operation. They're dominating the, yes, they're paying the big money. They're doing the big bucks. They have YouTube. Oh, somebody's going to sue them because they hate YouTube. Oh, they dominate this way. I want to sue them. So they got the thing. Remember Bill Gates and Microsoft got sued? Microsoft offered on your computer, like this laptop here. Well, this laptop is running Windows 10, but they are, as a bundle, you bought the operating system on your computer. You didn't have to use that, but you basically has the cheapest. You don't have to use. I don't have to use Windows 10 on this computer. I can use somebody else's operating system. But Windows 10 I'm using is also Office is on here, but I don't have to use Microsoft Office on this computer. I use one of the free offices on this computer. It used to have Windows 10 on it. Now it has something else. I have the Office has a laptop that has 365 on it. No, well, I use it, you know. I use it to do that. But you, again, if you're a little bitty, you want to get into some kind of business and there's somebody dominating the business, sue them. And their profits will be in your pocket. You get a lawyer suing him. Well, they dealt with like Kraft cheese. Kraft cheese. Well, you know it's Kraft cheese. It has Kraft logo on it. But if you want to break in it and you want your own little cheese company, go sue Kraft and see what happens. You might even get money off of Kraft. Well, of course, Kraft may decide to turn you into cheese. They don't do that, do they? No, they don't do that. But if somebody's dominating, the same thing with computers. Who runs this computer? This is a Dell computer. You got HP out there. When all these companies started back in I'll give you Apple 1, Apple 2, Apple 3. I had an Apple II Plus, okay? And then there was something called Franklin. Franklin was a copy of Apple. It was a direct copy. It was running Apple stuff, but was made by someone else. And Apple sued them and put them out of business. You can't make, you're stealing that. Now Intel made a motherboard and sold it to anybody for a computer system. They didn't care what they're selling the motherboard, and then you buy all the other stuff that goes with it. But Apple is Apple. You have an Apple computer I used to have an Apple computer from 2008, and I was locked into Apple 2008 program. 2009, when they brought out a new Apple, I couldn't run the new software on the old software. The same thing with Apple 2 Plus I had. When they brought out Apple 3, I couldn't run their programs on it. So I switched over, in time I switched over to an IBM type computer. It's like VHS, Panasonic VHS, or you have Sony's reel-to-reel. Okay, people bought Sony's reel-to-reel with a camera and a cord going to a recorder. Whereas I bought it running, I bought a couple of those. They both failed at the same time. But Panasonic came out with a cartridge. Big machine, that thing. And when I took it apart, I couldn't find one integrated circuit in it. I had a 3/4 inch machine, same thing. I couldn't find a 3/4 inch, I couldn't find an integrated circuit in it. They didn't have an integrated circuits. Well, as I could tell. Now, of course, their next model they had from a big one, they went down to something like that. Instead of something like this, they went down to something like that. And they made 10,000 of them, and they switched to another model, and then they switched to another. They did not make. When you make a model, Japanese make a model, there's only so many of that model number they have, and then they switch to another model. So if you want to find a part for that model, you're not going to find a part. You have to go out and buy a new thing. It's something like finding parts for this laptop. There are no parts for this laptop. Maybe you can put in a keyboard, you pop one of the keys, but there are no parts for this laptop. Now it's sophisticated. You open it up, you can remove RAM out of there, you can get the floppy hard drive out of there, SD card. But beyond that point, there's nothing. If the small fan fails in here, it fails. There are no replacements. Unless you can go on eBay and get something there, but that's really crappy. It's something like Microsoft's something or other. Oh, I don't remember Microsoft's. They got the little tablets. When those fail, you open them up. Oh, I can repair the screen because it's cracked. You really can't repair the screen unless you really know what you're doing. It used to be is they had the motherboard, they had the screen, then they got the ribbons to the motherboard, and you could pull out the SD card out of it and put a higher one into it. But it's, you're talking, do you really want to do it? Somebody can really sophisticate. It's going to cost you $500 to do it. Go buy yourself a new one. If you crack the screen now, good luck on that. Can you replace the screen? Yeah, got $500. You need somebody who can do that. But now if you open these things up, you've got the case, you've got the screen, and you've got a motherboard that has, I would presume they're supposed to have a clock in there, timing clock, or you happen to have, you're not going to do it. But back to Google. Google has a good system, and people want to get into that system. They don't want Google to dominate. So they're suing them. Oh, because, well, we're going to sue you, and you're going to pay us money. Good luck on that account. Do I use Google? You also use Foxfire. There are things wrong with Foxfire. Foxfire doesn't like Windows 7. I will tell you, it does not like Windows 7. It used to like Windows 7, but they don't like it anymore. I'm running Windows 7, and Foxfire does not like Windows 7. Well, as I said, Google's going to lose, and they're going to have to pay all these other dummy companies money